Good evening, everybody. and welcome to another episode of Short and Sweet. We enjoyed ourselves so much last week, we thought we'd come back and do it again. So thanks for joining us. Thanks to everyone who's already put their Twitter handles and said hi in the chat. It's really great to see those people coming back from previous weeks and other people, new faces joining us as well. So I'm going to hand over to Ben, who's going to introduce himself as well.
Hi everybody, thanks for joining us here on Short and Sweet this week. So we're really excited to welcome Rachel here this evening with us. So please do join in the chat with us. We'll keep an eye on any questions throughout. But I don't want to steal Rachel's thunder, so I'll let her introduce herself to you all now. Rachel, take it away.
Thanks, Ben. Hi, everyone. My name's Rachel. If you didn't guess from the accent, I am originally from Australia. I was a classroom teacher there for 2 years and then moved over to the UK where I worked as a computing teacher and now am the lead teacher for technology at Leo Academy Trust.
Brilliant. So we're going to make a start, as we've said in the promos. Actually, first question is, Rachel wearing a Google shirt?
Yes, I am.
So am I.
Oh, I missed out. I missed the memo again.
Ben didn't get the memo. There's something wrong with your postman, I'll tell you, Ben.
I know. Every week I'm behind you guys.
Absolutely. Just first of all, the reason we're going to Australia is not because Rachel's Australian. It's because she paid lots of people to vote for Australia. We had a vote during the week on our Twitter feed. It's been really good because we've hit 100 followers on Short and Sweet. So at Sweet Shorthand on Twitter, we've hit 100 followers this week. So really, really been pleased with that. And we had a little vote and Australasia won out just about over South America. So that's where we're going. So we're going to hand over now to Rachel.
Perfect. So tonight I'm going to be taking you through a little bit about virtual reality and augmented reality. I'll be looking more so at the virtual reality aspect, but I will just sort of briefly touch on that augmented reality. And then I'll give some opportunity to sort of explore the content that's there and to do some creating. So it is an active session. So I would love to see you, if you are in the chat, you'll see later on why I talk about that and then go into some ideas, adventures and more, because we are here for an adventure. So a little bit about an introduction to virtual and augmented reality. So for those of you that don't know, virtual reality essentially allows you to see content within your surroundings. So it's very similar to watching a movie, whereas augmented reality allows you to sort of experience that content and manipulate it as well. So you can hold it in your hand, you can put something on your shoulder. So it's a lot more interactive. So for young learners, augmented reality is fantastic, but virtual reality is something that's just a really engaging way to allow students to interact with content and to see different parts of the world without actually having to leave their classroom or now even their house, which we're all confined to and are desperate to go for an adventure. So what is it all about? So this will be just a little video that is playing. Don't worry, there is no sound. And this will just take you through some students exploring virtual reality and augmented reality. And I think the key thing to sort of touch on here is a lot of people are reluctant to use Google Expeditions because they think they need to have Google Cardboard or a headset or virtual reality goggles. You definitely don't, and that's why I'm sort of here to shout about Google Expeditions. There's much more than just simply having those goggles there, and you can see here those examples where the students are engaging, and a big shout out to Kim Martina, who's featuring in this video here with Google for Education as well. So you'll see here that Google Expeditions is not just allowing learners to explore the world, go into space, you can look inside the human body and even explore animals, teeth, and even viruses as well. So it's a really important time to be able to do this, especially when we can't think about the opportunity of taking students on residentials or trips or excursions. And then in terms of that augmented reality content, hopefully this gives you a little bit of a glimpse into what it looks like. So it's very much being able to bring, for example, this one is a nucleus into the classroom or into your living room. So it's that AR content that you can interact with. And one of the things that's really nice about this is that you can get dinosaurs and have them walking on children's shoulders. You can have snakes slithering around. So this is a really nice thing to do. Note that if you don't have any AR compatible devices, that you can still explore all of this augmented reality content. It's just that you'll see it in a white background, so almost like it's in a studio. So that's just something to bear in mind. But you can always check what that device compatibility is and see if your devices are compatible with that content. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to jump in and share my screen, and I'm going to go into Expeditions now. Am I good to go?
Yeah, do you want me to stop sharing the presentation?
Yeah, is that all right?
There we go.
Okay, perfect. So we did say Australia, so that's where I'm going to take you to first. And I thought that I couldn't help but take you to sort of explore the Great Barrier Reef, which is one of my places that I've always dreamed of going to. And whenever you go onto the Expeditions app, just before I do jump in, you'll see that in Discover is where you can quickly search by AR or VR content. You've also got those sub-subjects there that are helpful to quickly find a particular tool that you're looking for. And you can also search as well as popular content appearing at the top. Library is where any content that you've downloaded is. So you'll see here that this is content that I've downloaded. And you've also got My Tools, which I'll come back to later on. And then class down the bottom. So you'll notice at the top, I've got guide on my screen here. And basically what this does is it means that I can guide the tour and view that content on my device as well. And I'll show you what that looks like in a second. So I'm going to go into the Great Barrier Reef. So when I open a tour up, you'll see that I've got the option to view and then view in virtual reality. So if you are using Google Cardboard or you do have virtual reality goggles, then this is where you'd use that. If I want to guide it, so this is a nice way to guide a lesson with students. So I can tap onto that guide option there. And what that'll do is it's going to come up with a code. And then on my phone, which I've got here, I'm just simply going to join that tour, and you'll see, hopefully, I don't know if you can actually see that or not, that it'll say that it's holding on. So it's waiting for the teacher to direct the learners where they're going to go. So this is a really nice way when you're in the classroom, fingers crossed we will get back there one day, is that you can actually guide and control where they visit. So we're going to go into Lady Elliot Island here. And what this allows you to do is obviously just go through and explore up with the corals and the fish up nice and close here. And you can see there just that outlook onto the water and just how close that coral reef is to the beach there. And when you go through any of the Google Expeditions content, that this actually does allow you to quickly go in and see historical information. So you don't actually have to go and do research and find out about a place. And what's really nice from a teacher perspective is that you also have those beginning, intermediate and advanced questions to guide your learners as they take this tour. And again, you can direct them. So if you want to talk about the marine parks, or if we want to find the turtle, so you can see there that when I tap onto that, that is going to bring up that turtle there. And again, I can zoom in and pinch to see a little bit up close. And I can also go in and see the clownfish, or commonly known as Finding Nemo. And again, I can just go in to our next one here. Oh. That's not coming through. There we go. So you'll see here, again, just being able to explore around. We've got the manta rays at the top. And when your students go onto Google Expeditions, they can obviously go and pick up their device and spin around and view that content. And I think this is one of the nice things about it, is being able to engage and experience it. From a teacher perspective, what's really nice is that I can actually go and annotate directly on the screen and direct them to something that I want them to see as well. So this is a nice way to be able to do that. And then again, I can just make sure I tap off that first, and I can go around. And as I do go around, I can see we've got scuba divers in here. So I can actually find out where I need to look as a teacher or as a student as well. So we're just going to go into a shipwreck. So the Great Barrier Reef, for those that don't know, is full of lots and lots of shipwrecks, and that's why that has grown and developed over time. So you can see here, lots of fish, lots of views to see. So I'm going to take you out and jump into another tour. So it's always nice to be able to actually experience lots of different places, not just the one. So I'm going to go in here to Australia, and I'm just going to tap on view this time. So this time we're flying over the Sydney Harbour and the Sydney Harbour Bridge, which are coming into focus now. And again, if I just zoom in up nice and close, you'll see the Sydney Opera House, also commonly seen as a stack of plates recently, for when COVID happened and people thought they'd never be able to see Sydney ever again. And then as you move on around, you'll also then hit the Sydney CBD as well. And then just going around further, you've got the different bays that make up Sydney, and the New South Wales coast as well. So again, just sort of being able to have that nice clear view of the city. And again, you've always got that information to come back to. So if I can't remember where Botany Bay is, then I can actually focus in on the particular area, and it's actually behind what we see here. The rocks as well. So this is one of the oldest European settlements in Australia. You've also got the Royal Botanic Gardens, and then obviously the CBD district in Sydney as well. And then I'm going to go into where I'm from and where I spent my childhood holidays. It was the Great Ocean Road. So you can see here just how beautiful the beaches are, and the rocks and the beaches, as you can see here, and lots of little caves as you go through as well. So I've just got to jump in here. So this is up to the 12 apostles, which are actually sort of going down. I think we only have maybe 5 left now. So this is the Lockhart Gorge, and it was sort of known for sort of the powerful waves that would crash and creating those sandstone cliffs that you see. And then obviously those 12 apostles, but due to sea erosion, obviously these have started to reduce in time as well. And then the Great Ocean Road, which you can see here, that's a very long, windy road. It's 231 kilometres of road that drives down the coast there. And again, this is just going to the Great Barrier Reef. So this is actually an overview of it. And then you can see here, just as you go in, that overview perspective of it here. So I'm going to take you in to another one, and this is Melbourne and the Olympic Parks. So for anyone that's a lover of sport, I'm not a big lover of sport, but I did spend a lot of time. I love basketball. So one of the things that we would always go and watch is the basketball. So this actually takes you in to see the sporting arenas, and you can see here the different landscapes of those images as they come up. And then the Olympic Park, so you can see here again. And then we'll go into the Melbourne Arena. So this was actually where our basketball was commonly played, and you can see here. And we used to sit, not that you can really see, but we used to sit over here. You can't even see where I'm pointing to. But this is just to show you that a lot of the tours do allow you to experience not just sort of landscapes and areas, but also inside buildings and sporting arenas as well. The next one I'm just going to go into is a little bit in terms of the geography. So this is going to look at Australia. So if I just come around on the map here, you'll see just from outside Australia here. And you've always got that information. And I think that's what makes expeditions really nice as a teacher, is that there's not a lot of back work to actually go in and do. And again, just going into the coast and then looking into Sydney again. So that same tour that we went into, you'll see that that one has come back again here. So I'm going to jump out. I'd love you all, if you are in the chat and you haven't yet, to jump on to Google Expeditions and have a bit of an explore and see which ones you can find. Feel free to share maybe your favorite expedition that you've been on before. And I'm actually going to jump back into the slide deck. So Ben, if you don't mind bringing that back in.
Yeah, I'll put it back on now.
Okay, perfect. And if you just wanted to go to the next slide there.
Oh, it seems to have frozen on me.
So what I will mention is that whilst a lot of people love using search within the app, I definitely recommend checking out the full list of available Google Expeditions. So this has everything. It goes through all of the specific content areas. So if there's one, sometimes I've found that when I do a search on the app, I don't actually find the specific place that I'm looking for, maybe because it's called something else, but sometimes the description has the word that I'm looking for. And if that comes up, then it means that I can actually find an expedition that I can take my students on. And one thing to note is as well that you don't actually have to take your students to see every scene within an expedition. So you'll see that when I took you through those ones before, you don't have to see all of them. You can just show your students one, zip out, jump in another one, and then show them a couple of scenes there. And I think that's a huge benefit there as well. And the expeditions list that's been added in, a quick Control F is a fantastic way to find an expedition that you're looking for. And there's also lesson resources there as well. So if you're after a sort of lesson plan or an idea, there's some that even integrate coding as well. So how you can actually use Google Expeditions and coding together. So I was teaching computer science and wanted to be able to link these two together, and not just from looking at a computer perspective of what does a computer look like, but actually how could I get my students to maybe go and explore the Great Barrier Reef and then turn that into a game that they could code and play. Thanks, Ben. So a couple of things to consider before you take your students on an expedition. It's always really fun and exciting to jump in, but always make sure you do preview the expedition first. I discovered this when I took my year ones to Buckingham Palace, and we stopped mid-lesson and they said, "Miss, is that you?" And I had to assure them that I'd never been to the Buckingham Palace before, and it definitely wasn't me. So it is important that you sort of know what content is going to appear for them. And also, as teachers or as people that want to book a holiday, we always consider why we want to go to a place. What are the benefits, especially if it's an educational trip? What are the benefits of taking your students to visit that place? And it's exactly the same when using virtual reality or augmented reality. You need to factor those things in. And then are you going to let your students be guided by you, or will you let them explore freely? Because remember that they're going to have a different experience if they can jump between the scenes, and then also to consider which questions you'll ask as well. And then in terms of when you actually guide and lead the expedition, initially when I found it, I thought, oh, fantastic. You know, I can take the students to Buckingham Palace and inside Tower Bridge and around London, because this happened all when London went into lockdown, essentially, and you couldn't actually go around and go into London. So we had to sort of stop all of our London trips. And that was what our Key Stage 1 were focusing on. So what we needed to factor in was when we actually do these expeditions, we need to think about what are the students observing? What are they wondering? And then how are they sharing, or that understanding of empathy as well? I'm not going to go through these, but I'll just leave these here just for you to think about, because it is important that it's not just something that they go on, explore and jump off. We still need to have that educational aspect to anything that we do. And I think that comes into that whole idea of ed before tech, is such a key thing to remember.
No, absolutely, Rachel. You know, because if you walk into the classroom and say we're going to go on Google expeditions today, and there's no thought behind it, then it's interesting for a minute or two, and Definitely. Then okay, I've seen underwater now. What, you know? So it's got to have that pedagogy behind it. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then just a couple of key things to remember. So this just builds on that whole aspect. But consider the excitement. You know, Darren just alluded to that as well. You know, your students will be excited the first time they go on. The same way that if someone shows you a new holiday destination or shares some photos, you think, oh, wow, amazing, that's where I want to go. But actually, it's not, you know, that lasts for a couple of moments, but it goes away very quickly. So you want to keep that in mind. And then pick a fun tour. You know, that first one that you go with, it's probably not going to be 100% educational. So choose a fun tour. Choose your holiday destination or where you come from and share that with them, and enjoy that fun moment, and then go into, okay, this is actually how we're going to use it to support our learning now. And then remember the cards. So there's those cards that I went through with all of that information on, and those questions are a really helpful way to guide your learning as well. And then that smiley face icon. So it didn't come up on mine, but you will see a little smiley face that shows where your students are. So this is a nice way to actually see, not exactly, you don't see their names, you don't know who it is, but for the majority of the time I found that it was just enough to know actually they're all looking at the shark, or they're all looking at this, and actually this is where I want to direct them to. And then that pencil that I mentioned as well. And then if you are guiding a tour, you can always use that pause tour feature, which allows you to regain the attention. So to stop, ask questions, don't just allow them to sort of go through and experience that content as well.
I think Stacey just said there back in 2018, Google came in and visited her 5th grade class. We had a similar thing at our school as well. They came and visited us and brought all the kit with them, and we were in a science room, and I don't know if it was the same for Stacey, but the kids were loving it, but they were all on their feet moving around, and they were just bumping into each other and all sorts of, it was hilarious to watch if you didn't have a headset on. But equally something you have got to plan ahead for.
Definitely. And you need to set up sort of some explicit rules. I know Amber's just posted that on as well. So having expectations are really key. And I think this is something that often gets forgotten with technology, is that we just think, well, they love technology, they use this all the time, they'll just innately work out what they need to do. They don't. You know, I had children running from one side of the classroom thinking that if they ran, they would get closer to a shark on a tour. And that's definitely not the case. So that's just something to keep in mind there as you go through.
Presentation disappeared.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let me reshare again.
Here we go. There we go. We're back again.
Awesome. So one thing that was new to expeditions recently is that you can share with your animals. And by animals, I obviously mean your beautiful children. And I think, this is a huge time saver for me during distance learning. Our children were back on Monday and being able to share expeditions using the direct link. So when you open up a tour, you do have that share option before you go on to view it. And you can push this out to Google Classroom so that they can quickly open it in the Expeditions app as well. So I've just seen a really great question about how you could use it in math. So I know that there is content specifically that does look at some areas there. So definitely go through that list and start to explore. It could be that you guide your students to think about what shapes that they can see, or, exploring different areas around there. I'm no maths expert though. And I've seen Stuart say we use it as a stimulus for creative writing. It's fantastic. There's so much in the tools as well to go through. Thanks, Ben. And then I think that, the key important thing is to decide where it is that you're going to start the adventure. And Ben, this is a 3-click one, so I'll just prepare you now. So it's that first thing of, if we just click, give it a second.
Yeah.
So at the beginning, so you're going to use it to ignite your students' interest. So in a similar way that you might use a expedition or a excursion out somewhere, or a residential at the start to sort of ignite interest in the topic, maybe in the middle to sort of build more clarification or a deeper understanding of a topic. So maybe if you are exploring Australia, then how are you going to deepen their understanding of what it looks like, the empathy to certain animals or people, or at the end, so applying and extending their learning. It's a nice way to sort of wrap up content area as well.
Cool. Got a question from Tammy, Rachel.
Yep.
Can anyone recommend any resources or protocols that are already available?
So I do have a list of them, but I hadn't put them in my slide deck, so I'll be able to share them out and pop them in the Wakelet collection, which we'll share at the end.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Thank you.
So keep an eye on that Wakelet collection. I'll update it shortly.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Right.
Okay.
So I'm now going to jump into Tour Creator. I hadn't noticed it swapped. So Tour Creator is fantastic because whilst Expeditions does have a lot of content, a couple of you have asked, well, what about this subject? Or, what happens if I don't want to take them? I was looking last night thinking, okay, there's not many Australian tours available. So, one of the great things about Expeditions is that you can actually, about Tour Creator, is that you can create your own expeditions and you can actually then view them in the Expeditions app. So thanks, Ben. I'll just jump in before I get going. So this will take you just as a little bit of a quick view of what Tour Creator is. So it uses Google Street View images or you can create your own. So if you have a 360-degree camera or you have the Google Street View app, then you can use this to go and take your own images. So you could do this of your classroom, you could do it of your local area. So sort of when I went down Great Ocean Road, I went around with my 360 camera and was taking images, which is much harder when you've got people around. So that's sort of what I'll jump into when I go into Expeditions now. So I'm going to jump in here. So to get onto Tour Creator, just simply Google Tour Creator or arvr.google.com/tour creator, and you'll see here that it does go straight into a tour of Rome. So I can tap on Get Started, and this will open up brand new screen here, and you'll see that as soon as I go in, I'll see my most recent tours that I've been working on. You'll also notice at the top here that there is a template section, and I always allude to this only because if ever there's an expedition that you find, so for example, maybe the 7 New Wonders of the World, or maybe you're looking at the eye, but when you go on to the expedition, you realize that there's content on there that you don't want your students to see, or maybe you want to add content to them, that you can actually take any of these templates and edit them. So if I just jump into this one, because it's one of my favorites, is that all of the content is set up and ready. So all of the information is here. I can go into the Taj Mahal. All of that content is there. I can click on and see the images that are here with all of that information. But equally, if there was any of this that I wanted to get rid of, so maybe I didn't want to see the Taj Mahal, I can just delete that from there. If I didn't want to go to Petra, maybe I can delete that as well. So I can just go through and choose which ones I don't want to see, and then I can use the publish option. So that's just to show you how that template works. I don't recommend just sort of using it as a starting point, but it's just to show you that if you are ever thinking, actually, you know what, I want to use an expedition tool that is set up and ready and does have content there, that you can obviously go through and choose one and then recreate it or tweak it based on your needs. So I'm just going to jump back into a new tour here, just to show you how you actually go about using Tour Creator for the first time. So I did say we were going to go down under, so we definitely are going down to Australia. And then in here, I can give a description. So follow us down under in Australia. And then you'll notice here that it does ask for a cover photo. So I can just simply select an image. Now, the only thing that I will say is that you do need to have this image ready to go. So it just sort of is worth noting that you do make sure you have images available. I would love to see the ability to just search directly. But often if I am just in the sort of quick of time and trying to look for a picture, I'll either go into Pixabay and grab a picture from there and just use that. But you don't need it. You can now, you used to have to put this in first, but you can now go straight into setting it up. Now, your category, this is just helpful, especially if you are deciding to make a public tour, that they can then find it based on how you categorize it. So I'm going to go with travel and then simply tap on create. And when I do this, this will then come up with the street view on the side here. If I had my own 360 images, this is where I would go in and upload them. So I'm going to go straight into the 12 apostles. And let's go. Oh, there we go. So as I pop that in, now what you will notice is it does jump around. And this is just simply because we are on a call. So sometimes it does happen. But just bear in mind, I don't know why, but I do sometimes find that it will just start to jump around the screen. But you can see here that that person can be moved. So for example, like all the images that I've found so far, I haven't been happy with, but I am happy with that one. So I'm going to tap on add scene there. And you'll see here that I can then explore, check that the scene is okay. And then what I want to do is I want to set the starting point. And the starting point is crucial to actually capturing student engagement, because you want them to not just see this or this when they go onto the tour for the first time. You do actually want them to see what it is that they should be seeing. And this is definitely not the 12 apostles. So I'm going to go into this view here, which, as you can see, you know, we've only got the 4 left here. So this is the 12 apostles. And again, in here, I can find the exact location if I want to, but I'm just simply going to type in Victoria. And I can go in and put a full description. So the 12 apostles are found Great Ocean Road. They have slowly eroded over time. When I was little, I did see all 12. And then what I can do is I can add a point of interest. So a point of interest almost calls out a particular area. So I can add this on, and I might add this on here, and then I can put in a... And what I can do there is I can then add an image overlay of what it used to look like. So I'm just hoping this is one that I do have. No, it wasn't one. So I can actually go in and add that image overlay. So if I just do a quick Google image search, I can go in and you can see here that I've got even more there. So you can actually see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is actually close to those 12 there. So I'm just going to quickly save that image, and I'm going to come back and upload that image overlay here. There we go. And I can simply add that on. So that means now that when I go on and view this tour, that image is going to pop up like you can see there, and I can then tap off that like so. And again, I can add in a description. And I can go through. Now, a couple of other things that I can do with any scene is I can add ambient audio. So if you want some backing sound, then you can go in and add in some ambient audio. And I like to use Ben's sound for this. You might have your own, but this is just royalty-free images, royalty-free music, I should say, sorry, and sound effects. And I can just download any of these for free. And I can then add this on. So again, I can just simply select this audio track. And this will then play as the scene goes. So if you're thinking about maybe, for example, meditation or mindfulness, this is a nice way to actually have maybe a landscape and then have some background audio going through to make it. Or I could even decide, actually, you know what, I want the crashing of the waves, and I can add that audio in here. So I'm going to add another scene in here, and I'm going to go back to Rottnest Island, which is my favorite place of where I'm from. So I'm originally from WA. And if I come in here, that's perfect. This is going to take me on to the beautiful Rottnest Island. And you'll see, you know, just how clear the waters are, and as you go through around. So I'm going to just pop in that title in here. And again, I can go in and put in that description. But what I am going to put is, you may or may not know this, if you saw Ben's tweet earlier, is that you'll commonly find hiding around in the bushes on Rottnest Island these little creatures that are possibly my favourite animal. And that is because they are one of the very few animals that are always smiling. And, you know, a lot of people see this image and think it's fake, but I can tell you it's definitely not. They are always reaching out and smiling, and they love a good selfie. And that image just says it all. So these are our quokkas. They are native to Rottnest Island. It's the only place in anywhere where you'll actually find them. So they are very unique in here. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add in some narration. So again, for this one, I can actually go on and do a audio recording. So I just like to go on to online voice recorder. The quokka is one of the animals that is well known for Rottnest Island. People come all the way to Rottnest Island just to take a selfie with a quokka. And again, I can just simply save this audio recording, and then I can add this to my tour creator. Am I okay for time?
Yeah, fine.
Yeah?
Yeah. We're on UTC just for Steph, so we've got loads of time.
Much time as you want for Steph.
Well,
She thought we were going.
I've added in that audio. Oh, that cut out then. So I've added in that audio there so that can then play through. I'm going to go in and add another scene in here. And this time I'm going to go to the very famous Bondi Beach, another place that I was desperate to actually visit this year if I did actually have the opportunity to go back home, but that wasn't on the cards. Let's just see. And you'll see that what happens is that even though I search at the top here, I don't actually find the exact image that I'm looking for. So I think that's something to always bear in mind if you are using Tool Creator, that you're not going to just be able to quickly do one search and hit add scene. So you will have to sort of have some patience there, and note as well that these images do come from people. So you may have, people in your scene, or it might not be a good day. Maybe it's nighttime. So just something to bear in mind as you go through and create these. So just going to quickly pop in Bondi Beach, and this is up to the Lifesavers Club. So I can just go in and add in at the top here. And I can add in a image overlay again, just to show you how to do that. And there we go. So that's just a nice way to be able to have those areas to call out as you go through. And just the final one that I'm going to finish with is the Whitehaven Beach and the Whitsundays. And again, I can just simply drag and drop that person to find where it is that I want to go. Oh. We don't want to visit the Whitsundays right now. Okay, there we go. Let's pop that in. So you can see there that we've got the plane there. So I'm just going to quickly pop in Whitsundays. And again, I can add in another point of interest. And I'm just going to go with a over the top, because a lot of people, when they do go to the Whitsundays, always go over on a helicopter and go from that sky view there, so that they get a different perspective of what it looks like. Now, when I've finished and I'm happy with my tour, I'd always recommend, whilst you can, I'm not sure exactly how many scenes you can add in. I think I've maybe done 8 or 10, I can't remember. But one of the problems we did discover was that it actually does take a while to publish and process. So if you are doing, for example, maybe a school tour, is to cap it based on sort of rooms or locations and then combine them. So rather than them all being on the one, that they go through a couple there. When you're finished, all you need to do is hit publish. And then you can either leave it as public. I prefer to do it unlisted, and I always recommend if students are doing it to keep it unlisted. This just means that it won't appear in Expeditions in the main list as they go through the content there. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now, what happens now is that this will go into Poly. And what's really nice about this is it doesn't matter if your students have Expeditions or if they don't have an AR-compatible device. This is just a website, so anyone can actually go on and view this and go around, and you can see here that this will go through, and it will pan around automatically. And those points of interest will come up as well, so that you'll be able to sort of go through and see any content. So you can see here that Quokka's just about to appear, and we'll leave it there. Now, at this point, there's a couple of things to say just within Poly, is that those sounds and audio recordings are turned on in here. The quokka is one of the animals that is well known for Rottnest Island. And if you're like me, you probably don't like hearing your voice after it's been recorded. So I'm going to stop there. But that's to show you that's where you go in to share it. Now, what's really nice about Tour Creator is that there's two things. So I can actually go into the Expeditions app now. So if I jump into Expeditions and go into My Tours, in a moment, this will actually come through with my tour that I've created. Just give it a second to come through. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to come through.
Australia's a long way away.
It is a long way. You know, it has to go there and back and back again. Yeah. So whilst it's processing and working its wonders, I'll go into showing you one other really cool thing about using Tool Creator, is that when you use share down the bottom here, you'll see that you do have the ability to embed it. So anything that you're using where you can embed, then you can actually take this code. Now, big one for us is using Google Sites. So I'm just going to jump in to here and go into Google Sites now. So I've got my site here, and then all I need to do is just simply double tap, click on the embed option, and then embed from code, and I can paste that in. And in a moment, this is going to appear. I can tap on insert. And now, rather than just having my students go to that link or open Expeditions, they can actually view and interact with that tool directly on that Google site. So if you are using Google Sites for distance learning, or if you're using Google Sites to share resources with your students, this is a nice way not only for them to share a tool that they've created, but also that they can actually go through and interact with all of that content as they view that site. So I'll just give it 1 second to come through so you can see here that I can go around, I can drag and explore, and again, got to come up with that quokka. And again, just going through and opening up so that you can see that content there. And again, any information that you put in, I know that I've just done this very quickly, but any information you do put in here will appear there for them. So if you've got any questions or if you want to guide their learning, you can do that there as well. Let's just give it one last try and see if the Expeditions app has come through with my tour. This is like the one time where you think, come on. It just doesn't want to go through. No.
Probably been held up, taking his temperature and doing all that kind of thing.
I think so. So I'll jump back in, Ben, if you don't mind just sharing the presentation again, and if it does come, then I'll share it.
Yeah. Here we go.
Perfect. And I think like one of the key things to sort of note is that adventures are always better together. You know, we're on adventure right now, but, you know, you've just seen how to create one. So why not go and do one now? You know, you saw just how quickly it takes to set one up. So even if you only do one scene, why not go and try that now so that you can see just how quick and easy it is to create. Maybe it's a holiday destination. Maybe it's, you know, your hometown, a place you've always wanted to visit. This is a nice way to be able to do that. Thanks, Ben. And then this was just, you know, just a quick little overview of if you are using it with students and want to give them some sort of overviews and outlines, is just to set a really simple, you know, create a 3-scene tour. First one, just do a 360 scene. On your second one, I want you to add in a text description of the place. On the third one, add a point of interest, add that image in. And then as that challenge, go in and add audio or even record a voiceover, and then to go through and publish it as well. And then just to sort of finish up with just a couple of things about how else you can explore. So we've gone on, you know, using Expeditions and Tour Creator, but they aren't the only places that you can go to explore the world. So thanks, Ben. So a couple of the places that are worth mentioning is Google Arts and Culture and Google Earth as well. And the reason that I point these out is that there is also some fantastic tools available that go through. Let me just quickly jump in. Bear with me 1 second. There we go. Okay, so if you want to bring me back in, Darren.
Yep.
I'm just going to show you. So in Google Arts and Culture, there's also various tools available that do allow you to explore. Now, I'm just sticking with the Australian theme because that was the one that was chosen. But you can see here that there's lots and lots of different locations that you can explore. My favourite beach in Perth is Cottesloe Beach. And we'll just give it a chance to load up there. And then again, I can just explore, go around the beach, and you can see there. For those of you that don't know, Cottesloe Beach is actually, it's not a very pretty beach, but it does have some of the best waves and fish and chips. So I will always take that in anything.
And then, what was that massive silver ball that was on the beach?
It was one of their art sculptures. So a lot of beaches around Australia do art installations by the beach. So they bring art. So a lot of these that you'll go through and see is a lot of art installations. They're usually done by the beach because that's where a lot of people are. So you can go through and explore the war memorials, Shark Bay, and even, you know, into the Melbourne cricket ground if you like cricket. And then submarines and etc. So there's lots in Google Arts and Culture. A lot of people think it's just museums, it's just art, and it's not. There's a lot of content in there that's really worth exploring, and just using that search is a really quick way to do that. And also just to quickly touch on, and we'll see if there's actually loads, because I've found whenever I've tried to do a webinar and use Google Earth, it just usually kills everything. But I grew up in Melbourne, and what's really nice about Google Earth is that whenever you go on to the Explore or the Voyager aspect, is that there are already tours that are created. So, for example, if you know that you have you know, if you're 3 days in Melbourne and you want to explore, then you can tap onto this. And this will take you on a virtual fly around tour. So in a similar way that Google Expeditions does, this actually will bring up that information here, but you can then go through and it'll take you on that sort of like walking tour. But you can also use that fly option, which will fly from wherever you are right now to that location. So this is a really nice way, and you can see there it's going to zoom around and pan in on the map there. So this is a definite one to make sure you check out. And it's just whenever you go into Google Earth to use that Voyager option here. And all I did was, rather than just simply scrolling through and trying to find it, just simply do a quick do a Control F and find the place that you're looking for, or that keyword that you're trying to find as well. Cool. So if we can jump back to the presentation, I think now.
Yeah.
Perfect. And then, but what if I have questions? What if I want to know more? Well, obviously, we are all available to help answer any questions. So feel free to reach out to us on Twitter, send us a message, or one of the other great places to go to is the Google Help community. And this is not just a fantastic way to sort of connect with other teachers and feedback ideas, but it's also active with educators that are sharing resources. So if ever you do get stuck and you want to know, how do I do something, there's always that available as well. And just to say thank you, because, you know I've got lots of people on here. I haven't kept up with the chat, but, I'm grateful to sort of share. And if you do have any questions and want to know more about using Expeditions, I think we'll use this time to take any particular questions that are available.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, been really positive in the chat, Rachel. And it's nice to see people that are actually having a play around with it as well. So exploring where they were going to be going on holiday next month, but maybe aren't getting the chance to, but hopefully will again.
Yeah.
And lots of people talking about, what are the possibilities with this, and how easy it looks to build, and how easy it looks to work with. So absolutely fantastic.
I just want to say, thank you to you, Rachel, because I've learned a lot from this session as well. This is so versatile, and the stuff you can do with it, and I'm sure a lot of these people are going to go away and trial it, and see how it work in their classroom. So just a massive thank you for me, really, just as say I've learned a lot from you this evening as well. So
Oh, thank you.
Got a question here from Tim, Rachel.
Yep.
So I shared earlier on the link to the AR markers. Can you just explain what they are?
Yeah, of course. So within Expeditions, when you go on to a AR tour, it will come up with the option to view in AR. And I don't know if you can see that. So you'll see that my phone is basically asking me to move around on the screen there. And what that does is it basically uses, so you'd position those AR markers around your classroom or on the wall or on the floor, wherever you want to put them. And basically your students would then hover their device over the top of that AR marker to bring it to life. So for example, the video that you saw earlier, you had that tornado that came up. So basically that only happens wherever you've got those AR markers. Now they're all the same. I know that there's 4 in the page. They are actually all the same. So they'll all take students the same perspective. But it's just that they need those markers to basically bring that AR content to life there.
Really good. Must admit, I was in school last week with some of our more vulnerable students, and we were in the sports hall, and there were a few that didn't want to do any running around because they didn't feel up for it. So we just played around having tigers and penguins on the loose in the sports hall, and them going up to it and pretending to stroke it, and then they were filming each other and things like that. And they something as simple as that. They just really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Right, are there any more questions from anybody?
Whilst you wait and see if there's any more, I do have the tour available. So if you want to pull my screen back in.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah, good to go?
Yep.
Perfect. So you'll see here, so previously I was in the download section. So this was where I'd downloaded all of that content earlier. But I can also go into my tours here. And you'll see now that Australia tour that we created is here. And you'll notice because it has that tour creator icon here. Now, if I wanted to share this with my students, I'd use that little share icon there to share it. And then you can see I can either copy that or push it to Classroom straight away. But I just have to download it first. So this is the same with any tour in Google Expeditions. You do have to download it first. And this will humour me now. It's going to take 10 minutes to download. But this is basically just to show you that those tours that you create in Tour Creator do then cross over and come directly in to the Expeditions app. And as long as you're signed in, so for example, if I go onto Expeditions on my phone now, as long as I'm signed in with that same account, I can view that tour directly on there as well. But I think we'll jump because it's going to take a while, I think.
Yeah.
I love the way you're able to post directly to Classroom as well. Again, another time saving mechanism there, and that's what we're all after at the moment. So, you know, I think that's another really handy feature.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And one of the other things, you know, just while we're on sort of AR content that some of you may not be aware of is that on your phone is if you do a Google search for any animals, that you'll always get the ability to view that content. So you can see here, hopefully, that when I Google shark, which we have a lot of in Australia, that you get the option to view in 3D here. And again, in a similar way to that AR content, that shark will then come up and I can view it in my room. And again, it's just going to ask me to sort of move. I don't know whether this will actually work on my blinds or not. Yep, there we go. And I'll try and we've lost the shark. The shark's gone. But you can basically then explore that AR content there.
Really cool. Really great. Rachel, obviously you've taken us around Australia this evening, which is great, you know, because you know, we could have done it, but it's even nicer to have somebody who's kind of been there and can tell a story alongside it as well. But what's been the best experience you've ever had with Expeditions with the students?
Yeah, so the best one was definitely when I took my year ones around London. I think just because they were due to be going into London for an expedition, well, for a trip, and rather than, what we had planned was that they were going to see the outside of Buckingham Palace, and they would go on the South Bank and see the Tower Bridge, but they weren't going to go into Tower Bridge. They weren't going to be able to go inside Buckingham Palace. So actually, Tour Creator suddenly enhanced that trip a whole nother level beyond what we had imagined. And I think that's actually one of the huge benefits of using it, is that it's not just limiting to take them to something that they can see already, but actually thinking, okay, can we take them inside? And when we're in lockdown right now, why not send your students to go and explore a museum? Because probably all dying to see something. And even if it's, taking them onto the, Melbourne Museum in Australia that allows you to go on a dinosaur walk and see all of the dinosaurs, they're all set up with all of their skeletons and bones. And, you can go through and walk as if you're walking through the museum. And yes, okay, the content's not as good as if you were there and experiencing it, but it's better than nothing. And, a lot of schools are very much in that prospect now of, we have no idea when schools are going to open.
Yeah.
And when schools do open, will we still be able to allow tours to take place? Can we take children on residentials? Can we take them, on trips out? It's, just not likely at this stage.
Yeah. And I completely agree. I mean, I've used arts and culture quite a lot with students, and I've been trying to encourage our art department to use it as well, because you can actually, although it's not the same as being there in the museum and looking at it, you can actually get closer and look more detail than you could if you were stood there in front of it, because you're not fighting with other people, and you haven't got a barrier to stop you getting close. You can see fine brushworks, and the ability to just be able to dive in underwater at the Barrier Reef and things like that, and see it in 3D is just incredible, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Brilliant. I don't think we've got any more questions. Loads and loads of real positives. Lots of thank yous in there, Rachel, and obviously that goes for us as well. Absolutely superb. And what's really great as well is you're so passionate about it as well, and that really comes across. So thank you very much for joining us tonight, and thanks to everyone else for joining us as well. We'll be doing another one next week, possibly on Google Sites. So look out for details on that. But can I just say big thank you to Rachel, and let's have a big virtual high five for Rachel as well. Whether you want to put that in the chat or you're just doing it just for the fun of it, that's great. But thanks ever so much for joining us tonight, and do take care, guys.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Stay safe.